Left Field Investors is a community dedicated to limited partner investors who are interested in building wealth through real estate investing. The community is focused on education, networking, and engagement with quality operators and partners. We provide tools, webinars, and a forum where members can discuss everything related to real estate investing, including deals, operators, investment strategies, and much more. Coming soon, we're adding a new tool, sponsor reviews. This will be a place where our members can rate and review operating partners to further help each other in our investment journeys. Check us out at leftfieldinvestors.com.
I took that refinance check and I bought another property. It was a down payment. And then I bought another one. After about 20 properties, Jim, somebody asked me, how the heck, you're like 21 years old. How did you buy 20 properties? Where did you get 20 down payments? Is always a question I would get. And I say, I didn't get 20 down payments. I got one down payment and I used it 20 times.
Hello, Left Fielders. Welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast. Our community is focused on networking and education to help people invest passively and think differently. Let's go.
This is Peter Kim, and you are listening to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
Today to have Michael Sarracini with us. He is an award-winning entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and the CEO of Keyspire. He focuses on adding value to people through personal development and education, including, of course, real estate investing. So, Michael, welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
Jim, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm excited about this conversation. The way we start out generally on the podcast is we'd like to hear your journey. How did you find real estate? How did you get into it? And then how did you decide you were going to help others through education and coaching?
Yeah, Jim, I've been a real estate investor for 24 years now. And with my company Keyspire, for over 14 years, we've helped real estate investors from all across the US and Canada and even around the world be better at what they do and move towards their lifestyle freedom day. I've made quite a remarkable journey and transition from being an active real estate investor to being a passive real estate investor. And I've modeled our complete mastermind program we have thousands of members in our inner circle around this idea of going from being an active investor and having a job called real estate investing to be a passive investor and have investments called real estate investing. And a lot of people don't understand how important that transition is to get to something that we call lifestyle freedom day. And so the way this journey started was actually pretty interesting. Most people don't realize that the first business I started wasn't a real estate investing business. In fact, it was a business that failed that led to a real estate investing business. And I think that's a really important message to hear over and over again, that as business people, as real estate investors, as entrepreneurs, we've got to learn to fail forward. We've got to learn that failure is part of the journey. And so when I was 20 years old, I started another business before real estate investing. Now, at 20 years old, what did I want, Jim? I wanted to be rich. I wanted the money and the women and the cars and all of that. So I said, I'm going to do, obviously, what you're going to do when you're 20 years old to start a business is I'm going to start a boy band. And I'm talking about like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, like not like a boy band, like there's no instruments. We just sang and danced. 5 guys, we started this band, Jim, and we were 5 roommates that went to a university together, went to school together. And we said, this is what we're going to do. We had no idea how to do it. We didn't have the skills or capabilities, but we had the drive and the resourcefulness to make it happen. And there's so many lessons I learned out of that experience. So, number one, I worked for free. We worked for free for months. We would learn to sing and dance, and then we would put choreographs, things together, dances together in songs. And then we would perform it like friends' little sisters' backyard birthday parties, wherever we could be. And then we started being asked to perform at street festivals. And then we started getting noticed by television and newspaper. This is the year 2000, before YouTube or podcasts. So it was all newspaper and TV interviews. And then we started getting these gigs that were thousands of people, these variety shows from across the country. So we really started this amazing meteoric rise in only half a year by being resourceful, by developing the capabilities as quickly as possible, and by working for free and not giving up. And then a record label, Jim, got us on board and said, we're going to take you guys down to Nashville and record an album. So they flew us down to Nashville to select what studio we were going to record our album at. We looked at 3 studios, flew back into where we lived at the time, was just outside of Toronto, Canada. And in the airport, I never forget, the manager said, all right, guys, we'll see you later. think of which of the 3 studios you want. We're going to call you in a few weeks to find out which one, and we're going to book it. We'll go down, we'll book it, we'll make it happen. You guys are going to be famous and rich and all of that. So we were so pumped. Well, a couple of weeks went by, no phone call. Week 3 went by, no phone call. Week 4 went by. Week 5 went by. Finally, around week 5 or 6, we got the phone call. We're huddled around the receiver, around the phone. This is when phones, you used to plug them into the wall in the past. And so we're huddled around the phone, and the manager said, guys, it's over. We're not doing this anymore. I said, what? We thought it was a joke. We were on top of the world. We're shutting down shop. We're going bankrupt. We're done. We're closing down business. It's just the business is not working for us anymore. So instantly overnight, we went from being on top and having this hope and confidence for the future to being at the bottom. And at 20 years old, that was the most traumatic experience I had ever had in my life. But I took a lesson out of there. 24 years ago, I learned a lesson from there, Jim. I learned that I would never let anyone else be in control of my future. You see, by putting the record label in control of my future, I can work as hard as I want, but I could go to zero overnight. And so I promise never again, the next business I start, I'm going to be in control, not the record label, not my employer, not the government, not politics, not the weather, not anything. I'm going to be the person in control of the future. And that desire, that traumatic experience, it created this framework and this guiding principle of control for me. Being in control of my future is what ultimately led me to be a real estate investor. Because real estate, compared to any other investment, you are more in control than anything you can ever invest in. And so that's what brought me into real estate.
Wow. I have so many boy band questions, but this is not a boy band podcast. So we're gonna dive right into real estate. And I guess at 20 years old, so you had this, meteoric rise and then this crash. And you realize something that's super powerful and has probably fueled your entire life since then, which is, you're going to be in control, not let anybody else be in control. So how did that realization lead to real estate? Because even if I had that realization at age 20, I wouldn't have thought, oh, well, it's going to be real estate then that I make my career out of. So how did you pivot to real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a fantastic question because of that pain, and because I now had clarity into what I wanted, at least in terms of a guiding principle or a framework, something that would bring me control and wealth, and all of these things, something presented itself that had been there my entire life, and not my entire life, but it had been there all along, but I had never seen it before. So one day my roommate, Scott, and I were walking to the bank to deposit the landlord's checks. Remember, we all lived together in a student house, 5 of us. And Scott and I were responsible for going to deposit the checks. This is before e-transfers and all of that. So you had to walk to the bank and put money in the actual account. It was about 10 minutes to walk from our house, a nice sunny day. So we didn't mind walking. So we put the money in the bank, and the teller said, would you like a receipt? We said, yeah, sure, we'll take a receipt. So at that time, and for some reason, she ended up printing up like the mortgage, not the mortgage statement, but the full mortgage breakdown, saying that, okay, you've put in this amount of money and here's what the mortgage costs and all of that. I think today that probably wouldn't happen because privacy seems to be a little more under wraps today than it was 24 years ago. But for some reason, we got the statement, and we're walking back to the house. And I look at the statement. I say, Scott, what is this? We just deposited, I think it was about $1,500. We just deposited $1,500 in rent. It says mortgage $800. Why would the mortgage be less than the rent? He's like, let me see that. So he takes a look at it. He says, I think that we're paying more than the mortgage. Now, as real estate investors, Jim, this is an obvious idea. This is how the business works. But as 20-year-olds renting our first student house, we had no idea that the landlord would make money off of get this cash flow. And we said, holy cow, we're paying $1,500. It's costing $800. He's making $700 a month extra off of the hard work we're doing. We're working at the restaurant. We're doing all this hard work. And so I realized at that time, I got the aha moment. This is what led me to real estate. I said, we looked at each other. We both had it at the same time. We said, we have to be on the other side of that equation. We don't want to be the ones paying the $1,500. We want to be the ones getting the $1,500. And that moment I knew, combined with this pain from a few months ago of losing what I thought was everything at the time, it probably was everything at the time. It was real estate. We said, we have to buy a rental property and put students in it. And so that was the moment where we decided real estate is going to be the next thing, where I decided real estate is going to be my business.
That's a great explanation there. So I assume that you started out as an active real estate investor and did that for some period of time. And then, like many of us, I was also an active real estate investor, and I slowly realized that that was not what I was good at. And I decided to transfer to be a passive investor. And in our community, being a passive investor, that's where you do all the work up front, right? You're vetting an operator, analyzing a deal. And then once you send the wire, it's generally out of your control. I have no more work to do other than hopefully I'm collecting distributions and reports. So can you talk about, I assume you transitioned from active to passive. Why did you do that? And how do you look at passive real estate?
Yeah, let me tell you about the transition. I'm gonna succinct it for you. Um, with the end in mind, what came out of this journey was something at Keyspire that we call the three investing streams. And so I'll give you this framework and then I'll tell you how I progress through them. The three investing streams are so critical. It's actually the first thing that we teach our members in our very first mastermind workshop are the three investing streams. Uh, Most people only know one investing stream when it comes to real estate investing. And since you are into the passive side, you probably counter this all the time. Most people think, okay, real estate investing is I buy a property. That's real estate investing. I buy a property and I can either flip it or maybe rent it out. I don't know really that is. All the TV shows say to flip it, so I should flip it. So that's real estate. But that's only 1/3 of the story. There's two other ways to invest in real estate. There's two other full investing streams. The second one is private lending, and the third one is private equity. So you can be a lender, you could be the bank and invest passively in other people's projects, in other people's investments, in other people's renovations. And you can earn a generous interest rate by being fully secured on real estate. So that's our second investing stream of investing in real estate. The third investing stream is private equity, either individual, Jim, you need 100 grand to do a deal and I lend you 100 grand. I give you 100 grand, but I get equity in the deal and we have a profit share. That we call that individual private equity, or group private equity, where you have more of an LP structure where you got to raise 10 million or 50 million. So you need to get hundreds of investors involved. And that's group private equity. They all put their equity in and they get a portion of the profits that come out of the deal. And so the way I went through this journey is, number one, starting as an active investor. I started in the property investing stream and went in very simply, bought a property, I renovated it. And I did it with my partner. We did it together because we had to combine our resources in order for the down payment. So went in, I renovated the property. I turned it from a 3-bedroom to a 6-bedroom and rented it out to 6 students. So I essentially doubled the income of the property and made it look better. Now here's the key. I went back to the lender that got me the original mortgage, and I said, okay, I'm going to sell the property. And he said to me, well, why are you going to sell the property? I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. This is new to me. I see on the TV shows, they all sell the property, right? The flipping shows, you flip it and then you get a big check and that's what you're supposed to do. He said, let me get this straight, Michael. You told me you bought this property. It was hard to buy the property. There's a ton of transactional friction when you buy real estate. You renovated it. You did all the work yourself. You showed me the cuts on your hands. You rented it out. You said you got great tenants. You're making $1,000 a month in cash flow. At the time, we were making great money on that property. You got great tenants in there. It's all just running itself, and you have one phone call a month. And you're going to sell this? He says, what's wrong with this picture? I said, gosh, you're right. I said, but I have no cash. I'm out of money. I need to sell it to get cash to grow my business. He said, here's what we'll do. Since the value is higher, we're going to refinance it. And we're going to get you a check almost equal to what you would get if you were to sell it after your realtor fees and after all of your closing costs. You're going to get almost the same amount of money. But the beautiful thing is you can keep this property forever and have a cash flow forever. And that was mind blowing. That was an aha moment in my journey. I said, oh my goodness, instead of flipping it to someone else, I can flip it to myself. And that's one of our key strategies at Keyspire called flipping to yourself, where we teach people how to buy a property. They add value. They increase the value. They get the mortgage at the new value. They extract some cash and they get to keep the passive income stream forever. And so that's exactly what I did. Took that down payment. I took that refinance check and I bought another property. It was a down payment. And then I bought another one. After about 20 properties, Jim, somebody asked me, how the heck you're like 21 years old. How did you buy 20 properties? Where did you get 20 down payments? Is always a question I would get. And I say, I didn't get 20 down payments. I got one down payment and I used it 20 times. I just stamped one down payment 20 times. And people find that quite, mind blowing when I tell them that way. Oh, they want to learn more. So that's property, Jim. Now, how did I get into passive? Well, a few years in, it was after about year 5 when I reached what we call Lifestyle Freedom Day at Keyspire. This is the day where your passive income equals your lifestyle expenses. And I had passive income from all my turnkey properties, fully managed by property managers. At about year 5, I had mortgages coming due, so I started getting these big refinance checks. So you can refinance in 2 ways. Number one, you can add value very quickly and refinance within 3 to 6 months, or you can let the market pressure increase the value, and then at some point you can refinance. And for me, I had 5-year term mortgages. So at 5 years, my mortgages were coming due, so I could refinance without breaking the mortgage. So all these mortgages were coming due after 5 years, and I ended up getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash just from refinancing these properties. And I wasn't really interested in buying another 20 properties. I wanted something new. So the mortgage broker says to me, he says, why don't you try private lending? I said, what is that? He said, well, take this $100,000 check I just gave you, and or this $100,000 available credit. We'll put it in a line of credit at the time it was like 5% interest, and I can lend it out to 2 other clients at 12% interest. You'll make 7% interest on money that isn't even yours. And what I ended up ultimately ended up calling phantom money. I made 7% on money that wasn't even mine. So it's $7,000 a year on every 100,000. So as my refinances came in, I realized I had the option now between 2 investing streams. I could take that money and buy another property, or I could take that money and I could invest in private lending. And now I started to diversify and build a portfolio based on my options. One was the private lending was less return, 12 to 15%, but it was passive. Like you said, I did all the work up front, all my due diligence up front, all my underwriting up front, and then I get that interest rate. So that got me the second investing stream. And now I'm going to get to the third. Then I discovered the third investing stream, which was just by chance. I had an interview. Gosh, I think it was the year 2009 or 2010. I was interviewed on a TV show similar to what we're doing here. And then afterwards, the host said to me, look, you got to meet a good friend of mine, Peter. He has this firm and they do private equity investing in an LP form, LP structure. You basically can become a partner for as little as $25,000 or as much as you like. Well, there's maximums, but as little as $25,000, you could be a partner in a $100 million building that we're building. And I said, that sounds pretty cool. Instead of giving my $25,000 and getting a 12% interest rate, I can share in the profits. And so I met Peter and I ended up investing with his firm. And over the last 14 years, I've invested in almost every project they have. And I absolutely love the private equity investing. And that rounded out the 3 investing streams. That gave me visibility on the third investing stream, which is private equity. So today, Jim, what we do is we teach our members how to create a total portfolio by distributing their capital between properties, private lending, and private equity to create a annual income for them, a passive income, but being fully diversified within these different investing streams.
That's great. I love the 3 investing streams. So when you're talking to your clients, how do you recommend they allocate between the 3? For me, I do 2 of those 3. I don't have any interest in the real estate, what you call the real estate stream anymore, because I want to be completely passive.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit too active for me. I've sold all my rentals. So how do you counsel people? I mean, does it depend on where they are in their life journey, their career? And how do you recommend, hey, do a third here, a third there, a third, or do you have some other kind of allocation? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a very specific process that we walk our members through. And so I'll walk you through it right now. What we do is it's in the very first mastermind workshop. So our members will join our mastermind program, which we do quarterly workshops. So every year they get 4 workshops in the mastermind program. But year 1, day 1, workshop 1, what we do is this activity where we help them identify how they should distribute their available capital across the 3 investing streams. And what we do is we're not so much advisors when it comes to Keyspire. I mean, we can advise, but really what we do is we help our members unlock what they already are thinking, what's already inside them. And we do that through walking them through activities. So our members will do a series of activities that end up in this tool called the Investor Activity Dial. It's basically picture like an oven dial, and it goes from 0 to 10. 0 means you're fully active. 10 means you're fully passive. And as they go through this process that we bring them through, that I've never seen anywhere on the planet, we're the only people that bring our investors through this process, they will end up scoring themselves or dialing up how passive they want to be based on all the different circumstances that we know, how much time they have available, how much money, how much effort they want to put in, what resources they have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole matrix around this. But they'll end up giving themselves a score. So say they gave themselves, they were dialed at like an 8 as an investor activity dial. That means they're 8 out of 10 passive. Then they apply that number into our total portfolio manager. So the portfolio manager spreadsheet, they dial that in and it calculates how much money goes into properties, private lending, and private equity. So it's a very, very cool process, but it's the first thing that we have people do. So, anyone watching or listening that is kind of unsure, the first thing you have to think about is how you want to distribute your available capital between properties, private lending, and private equity. And for us at Keyspire, it's called the Investor Activity Dial.
This episode is sponsored by Midlock Investment Partners, the real estate investment firm, operator, and fund manager. Midlock invests in middle market properties valued between $5 and $50 million in the Midwest and beyond, using a value-add strategy. Learn more about Midlock and join their mailing list at midlock.com. That's Midlock, MIDLOCH.com. Thanks, Midlock, for being a sponsor of Passive Investing from Left Field.
Rust Belt Capital is an elite Ohio-based private equity firm with a specialization in long-term, high-cash flow multifamily investments. If you're looking for long-term recurring income, you should check out Rust Belt Capital. From their approach to managing risk, to the locations they invest, the product quality they provide, this firm is serious about what they do, which is why the owners of Rust Belt Capital invest their money in every deal they take on. Review their case studies by visiting rustbeltcapital.com. That's rustbeltcapital.com. Once again, rustbeltcapital.com, or email investor@rustbeltcapital.com.
So you focus more on income, it seems, than appreciation. And can you talk about why? And I know, it probably comes from flipping, right? Flipping is all about, there's no income. It's just appreciation, and you take it and you go repeat.
Yeah.
But why the focus on income? Because I agree with the income focus, and I'm becoming more and more focused on income the more I learn and the more I grow. So talk about income versus appreciation and the importance of income.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, so in Keyspire, we call it income versus wealth growth. So we call it wealth growth because you can grow your wealth without getting any free cash or free cash flow. So one of the other activities that we do in day one, workshop one, is called the Lifestyle Designer. What the Lifestyle Designer is we have our members write down exactly everything they want in their life, and then they write down what that costs annually for income. And at the end of the day, they end up with a number. This number is how much they need in passive income to get the lifestyle they want. We call that Lifestyle Freedom Day, the point where their passive income matches what exactly they want in life. We have a philosophy at Keyspire I call it the anti-budget. It's like, you're not going to save your way to happiness. Just like in business, you don't save your way to success. You don't become more successful in business by spending less in marketing. You can't save to be more successful. It's the same thing in life. You can't save your way to getting what you want. And so we have a very clear philosophy at Keyspire is it's okay to want what you want. Let's write down everything you want. Let's just find out what it costs to get what you want. You want to go on 4 vacations a year? Sure, write it down. And the goal of you as an investor is now to get your passive income to match what it is you want. So that's the first thing we establish is what is that number for Lifestyle Freedom Day? And then, and this is what addresses income versus wealth increases, we walk our investors through philosophically their journey through 3 zones. They're going to go through 3 zones. The first zone is called the Lifestyle Zone. The second zone is called the Wealth Building Zone. And the third zone is called the Lifestyle Freedom Zone. So I'll tell you what the 3 zones are that our investors go through. Zone 1 is the Lifestyle Zone. This is the point in their investor journey when they are trying to reach their Lifestyle Freedom Day with all of their income sources. So say, for example, someone's Lifestyle Freedom Day is $150,000 a year. after they've written down everything that they want, it ends up they need $150,000 a year. But they already make $100,000 a year at their job. Between their job income, them and their spouse, and maybe, I don't know, some other income, they already have a rental property. They already have $100,000 coming in. So they're in the lifestyle zone. Their goal is to just make $50,000 in passive income, because that gets them to the end of the lifestyle zone, saying, you got the lifestyle you want. This is beautiful. You're going on the vacations you want. You're buying the cars you want. So you have the lifestyle you want. So that's the end of the first phase or first zone, the lifestyle zone. Now we say, okay, you have $100,000 in active income and $50,000 in passive. Now we're going to go through the wealth creation zone. We've got to create enough wealth that you can replace that $100,000 in active income with passive income. So with really simple math, that might be $1 million if you get a 10% blended rate. That's $1 million. So they go through this wealth creation zone where now your goal is to create $1 million in available investable capital. And this wealth creation zone could be, for some people, I've seen it be 2 years. For some people, it's 12 years. There's no real time limit. It's just knowing what that number is, and it's different for everybody. So that's the wealth creation zone. Now, once you get to the end of the wealth creation zone, you've got your $1 million in capital, plus your $50,000 in passive income you've already created in your lifestyle zone. You now have enough income that you could do everything you want and never work again a day in your life. And that's what we call Lifestyle Freedom Day. And then they enter the Lifestyle Freedom Zone, where they're now at Lifestyle Freedom Day and they're just maintaining their portfolio to get the life they want.
No, that's fantastic. So you also talk about moving people from the cubicle to the cash flow, right? So Is this program targeted towards, W-2 employees, or is it, you mentioned some people might already have a rental. Who does this work for, and how do you kind of figure out, what each individual's path is? I know you have that dial, but there's also some expertise that has to come with that, right? So as you're turning the dial and saying, well, I want to be more passive or I want to be more active, if you haven't done real estate before, you're going to have to learn how to become an active investor, learn how to become a private lender, learn how to become a passive investor in syndications or private equity. So can you talk about that journey and how people figure out where they want to go and then how they actually accomplish it?
Yeah, so I'll speak to specifically our process, because that's what I know the best. And to me, this is the best process to do this. And this is, anyone listening, this is the process we bring people through. So the first thing that we do with our members is we go through Lifestyle Freedom, Investor Activity Dial. There's also another dial called the Private Real Estate Dial, where we help people understand how much money should be in the public market, stocks, bonds, et cetera, and how much should be in the private real estate market, properties, private lending, and private equity. So it's the first thing we identify, and they come up with a number. They dial up a number, and then they decide how much they are going to invest, or the activity they're going to give across the 3 investing streams. But when people come to us, they are a lot of our new members are looking to get started. A lot of our new members, I'd say about 60% of our new members are looking to get started. They wanted to do real estate for a decade. They just didn't know what to do to start, and it's just a little too risky for them to go buy that first property. So they come to us to just learn how to get started. That's maybe 65 or 70%. The other 30 to 35%, they're experienced real estate investors, and they're looking to just get better at their craft. They're looking to just how do I do this better? How do I do more? Maybe I've hit a plateau or a ceiling of complexity. How do I get to that next level? And so that's the other group. And so the activities that we walk people through in our mastermind program, I've seen them be mind-blowing and life-changing for somebody who's never done real estate in their life. And they've been life-changing for some people who have done real estate for the last 10 years and already have $1 million portfolio, because it helps them really just focus on where they should be personally, customized to them, not just a general advice of you should flip properties or you should do private lending or whatever it is. It customizes what they should be doing and where they're going to get the most return on their activity.
Excellent. And so the last question I always ask is what's a great podcast that you listen to?
Yeah, I'm a big health fan, Jim. I believe that health is the new wealth. I think that, so my podcast I like is the Andrew Huberman podcast and the Peter Attia podcast. I find that if I don't really listen to a lot of real estate investing podcasts, I listen to the health podcast because the healthier I can be, the better I can be at real estate investing, the better I can be at coaching, the better I can be at showing up for you and for your audience. And so I focus a lot of my personal development effort into health. And I thought about something. I was listening to Peter Attia's book this morning, Outlive, on my morning walk. And I thought about something interesting is we so often think about being in the top 1% of income earners. That's what you hear about in the news, like, oh, who's the top 1%, the top 1%. But we don't really think a lot about being in the top 1% of healthy people, of fitness. And so and he talked about this today. He just gave some numbers. He's like, oh, the top 2% have this VO2 max and these measurements. And I stopped walking. I said, oh my goodness, I've always wanted to be in the top % of one income earner since 24 years ago. But my goal should be to be in the top 1% of fit people, because I could have all the money in the world, but if I'm not fit, then it's all useless. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so that was an insight I just got this morning that I thought I would share. And these health podcasts, I think, are really valuable for any real estate investor.
Yeah, I love that because I'm not there yet, clearly, not even close. But we spend so much time building wealth and creating financial freedom and all that. And if you don't have the other things to go along with that, as you said, then what's the point? So I really appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
So finally, if listeners want to get in touch with you, learn more about KeySpire, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So my team has just put together, for our book launch, for a podcast that I'm doing, put together a free book offer. That's the best way to get a hold of me, is to just get my book for free. I don't have a copy here in front of me, but it's called Cash Flow for Life. And all the things I'm talking about plus more are in that book to allow you to be able to build this, whether you're brand new or like our audience. If you're just starting out or you've been doing this for 5 or 10 years, my partner and I wrote a book called Cash Flow for Life, and we're giving it away for free at keyspire.com/book offer. Just cover the shipping costs. You get the book for free. Now, you can also buy it on Amazon. I think it's $25 on Amazon. But shortly, we're going to be offering some free copies out there. First come, first serve for anyone who's listening to the podcast that I'm going to be on. So I would say, Jim, that's the best way to get a hold of, to learn about me, to learn about my team and what we do even more, is to get the book at keyspire.com/book offer. I think you'll probably put the link in the description. And then that's it. We want to give it away for free. I mean, our mastermind program isn't free. I mean, we are a business, but we give as much as we can away for free, doing things like this, giving the Cash Flow for Life. The reason we give away things for free, Jim, is when people join our mastermind program, we want to make sure that they know KeySpire. They know me. They know the philosophies. They know what we're doing, so that when they join, they're the right people that join for the right reasons. And so we give as much as we can away for free in order to allow that to happen, to get the right people in our groups.
That's great. We will definitely put that in the show notes. And for those that are interested, definitely download or send away for the book. That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael, for being on the podcast. This has been fascinating. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing in terms of getting people from active to passive. It's such a white space and such a hole in the real estate investing education out there.
It is. And likewise, I respect what you're doing. And I think the more people we have getting more people into passive investing, the better off everyone will be. So thank you very much.
Amazing.
Visor provides investors with a secure platform that displays a comprehensive view of all of their holdings on a single, holistic dashboard. From real estate syndications to private equity, crypto to traditional investments, with AI-driven, unbiased, honest insights to maximize return. Visor is your one place to rule them all. Automating performance tracking, projecting future cash flow, analyzing all your financial documents, and much more in one powerful solution, making it easy to follow the money. Sign up for a free 30-day trial now at Visor.co. Investing in syndications can be a daunting task. Wiring a large sum of your hard-earned money to someone you talk to on the phone for 30 minutes can certainly be scary. How can you be confident in what you're doing? Steve Sue, one of the founders of LFI, just published a book called Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor, 20 Lessons Learned from 14 Years of Investing in Private Syndications. This is by far the best book I've read on syndication investing. It's an easy-to-read book. chock full of great advice from Steve's experience as a passive investor. It is a must-read. Whether you're a first-time passive investor or a veteran, go to www.leftfieldinvestors.com/books and click on the link to Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor. If you are a passive investor, you got to read this book. That was a great conversation with Michael. I do think that he might be the first member of a boy band that I've ever talked to, certainly that I've ever interviewed on the podcast. So that was interesting. But he got so much out of that, right? As a boy band, they learned to be resourceful. They learned not to give up, and they had to work for free, and it all paid off, until it didn't. But in reality, it did pay off because of the lessons he learned that kind of sent him on his path. But the main thing that he learned that really set him on his path is don't let anyone else be in control of your future. And he seized on that and decided, he didn't want to be an employee. He didn't want to have other people in charge of him. He wanted to go his own way. And so he continued on his journey. And that's when, I love this, he went to deposit his rent in college, or maybe it was post-college, and saw the mortgage statement of the owner of the property and realized, oh, I'm paying someone $1,500 and they're only, paying $800. Now there are other expenses, of course, but he realized that, yeah, you want to be on the flip side of that equation. And so at 20 years old, what a great realization. And, he combined the, I don't want anyone else to be in control of my future with, hey, here's how real estate works, and off to the races, right? And now he talks about his 3 strategies, owning properties. And what he was talking about really is what a lot of people, at least in the Bigger Pockets community and others, call the Burr method, right? Where he used the same $25,000, I think he said, as the down payment on 20 different properties rather than getting 20 different down payments. So that's awesome. And then, so that's one of his 3 strategies. Then private lending and private equity. I used to do his first strategy. Now I'm all in on the second and third. And I think a lot of us kind of transition that way, but it's interesting how he has his dial that he coaches his people so they can kind of figure out where the best place for them is, because everybody's different. A couple other really great things I got out of it is, you're not going to save your way to wealth. And I think that is the abundance mindset, is you're not going to save your way to wealth. If you want to try to save your way to wealth, that's the scarcity mindset, right? Where you're clamoring over every penny and trying to figure out how to decrease your expenses. Where Michael, his idea is, hey, instead of trying to figure out, and minimize all of your expenses, sure, you can do that sometimes, but really what you want to do is grow your income, because that's where the magic is. And that's where, you can grow your wealth, or grow your way to happiness, or whatever wealth means to you. And then at the very end, he mentioned the importance of health. And I think more and more people are realizing this, that you can generate all this money and all that, but what's the point if you aren't healthy? Now, all of us are in different stages of that and have work to do. So it's easy to say, but it's definitely something to concentrate and focus on as much as we do the wealth portion of our day and of our opportunities and things we're trying to do. So great stuff from Michael. Really appreciate him being on the podcast. Learned a lot. That's all we have for this time. We'll catch you next time in the left field. Thanks for hanging out in the left field with us today. If you're interested in becoming a left fielder, you can find us on the World Wide Web at www.leftfieldinvestors.com and click the subscribe button to join our community. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to the show on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode. If you really enjoyed the show, a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts would be appreciated.
This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be considered financial advice. Before making any decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Passive Investing from Left Field and Left Field Investors. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.